Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Mayhem and Masterplans. We are back. Hello, Andreas. Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm also doing very well. Although it's still rainy, but
So
and
Very
if
good.
it's
Very
still
good.
rainy, then it's now a little much. Last time I said, "Oh, great, rain! You guys need
yeah,
rain."
And I
So
told you, and I told you, and I told you, no weather talk. Where are
ah,
we? Like, we're no weather talk. It's like, what
sorry,
are we doing? Are we
we
but
like?
can't talk about the
Yes, to a
weather. We
certain.
can't talk about work. So what are we talking about, man?
the
No, you
weather
can't talk about
produced a
work.
lot of mayhem here around Madrid right now. So
Okay.
there was
So what is the mayhem?
a big pine just fell off in the garden of our neighbors. That was the
Because
first mayhem. Then a lot
That
of streets were underwater, and
is mayhem.
that is pretty mayhem.
Yeah, it's like and you saw images of that like in Italy as well, right? So it become it became really a natural site of and it's so strange because think about the wildfires in LA.
Mm.
You have the flooding in Italian towns like close to the Alps. You have a flood nearly every year. Remember when we had like the huge flood back in 2000, whenever that was with Gerd Schröder when he
Yeah.
won the election due to the flood? That was like the every 10 years you had something like this. Now it's like every year something like this happens. You
The
have
planet is
the
trying
fires
to
in
shake us off.
and isn't it like how we and how people now because let's move a bit into politics, like they are now discussing the vote in Germany on like the on how much money they're going to spend. So the new government, the new chancellor Friedrich Merz, he had to kind of like do compromises with the SPD, like the Social Democratic Party, that he's going to be joining with to be the governing body. But then now to kind of like do a reform on the finances in Germany, they had to also do some compromise with the Green Party, and so now the 300 billion that they're going to spend, it's for infrastructure, which the Social Democratic Party wants, that his party didn't want, and now the another thing that had to go in for the Green Party to agree was climate. And I think it's important, but at the moment, like so many people get really upset. It's like, why are we spending money on climate? And it's like, because like it's gonna be like they say like, we can't spend too much money on climate because we have to spend money on the economy. Well, if there's no place that you can build a factory, that
It's
doesn't make any sense, right?
that it's so climate. In that sense, really is a form of infrastructure. It is a form of
Yeah.
self-preservation.
Exactly.
And hello, Germany. It is all about economy and business, right?
Yeah.
Spending money on climate means you can absolutely prop up, subsidize, invest in R&D
Invest.
of
Yeah.
climate-related technologies or anything
I was
related to that. Just be a little bit open-minded and innovative and
Exactly.
optimistic.
yeah.
Well, it's now, of course, the old industries in Germany, they are complaining because they're very energy heavy industries. So to them, it's going to be a bit of trouble. But then I feel like, well, if your industry doesn't survive that energy prices are going up, you might not have the right industry anymore, right?
Yeah,
You kind of
exactly.
need
Plus,
to, you
Germans
might
love
need
to
to find,
complain.
yeah, that is also true. But yeah, it's like uh, that is one thing like that people don't think about, that living in a very modest mild climate without any natural catastrophes or disasters is definitely a benefit, like a geographical benefit or USP, if you want to set up research infrastructure, production sites. So that's why you have a lot more companies located in North America and in Europe than in, I don't know, the middle of a desert, right?
Yeah.
Because it's when everything is on fire, it's hard to build semiconductors or something like that while
Yeah.
the world around you is burning or flooding. So, but then people don't think about it that way. So,
Yeah.
very short-sighted, a very short-sighted view. But it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Um, By the way, another since we're in crazy times, just one anecdote, and you guys said you want to talk about mayhem, so the world is kind of like the political mayhem is happening, and apparently, I don't know if it's a joke or not. I didn't verify it, but somebody in my last call from I had a call with people in the U.S. They said they heard or read on the news, I don't know, that France is asking back for the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah. I also
Yes,
there was one
yes.
politician.
Politician. Yes, I
But,
heard that too. I think it's
And I was asking, like,
very
is it a
nice
joke?
move.
Is it a joke? And then my U.S. colleague said, yeah, I think it's a joke. And then the other person from the U.K. said, yeah, I don't know how big French people are on humor. Maybe they really meant it. It's like, give it back. That would be such a...
I think, I mean, France as a whole, like officially, is not asking for the Statue of Liberty to return. So
they should.
Right?
They should.
But the guy
however,
nailed
I
it,
think
so that's
I think
really,
that particular
really funny.
politician was pretty serious about it,
Yeah.
or at least wanted to grab some headlines. So
I love it.
But
I love it. That
it's
would
really
be
funny. And in times of Trump, you can just say, it was not that meant, right? Or it was just a joke, or it was we meant it seriously. You can spin
that's
it
right. Haha, we were just
however
kidding.
you-
or maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah, but now that was Trump term number one, right? Where we were in a world where it's like, I say something really ridiculous to see what sticks and what doesn't. And whenever something says like, you can't say that, you can always say like, haha, what a joke. But like now post Trumpism now is like, you just say what you want and nobody just like, you can say the most outlandish shit that you want and just everybody accepts it, right? There's just, you can say like, yeah, well, Canada should be the 51st country. They're the worst kind of like people that we have to deal with. That was the last that Donald Trump said about Canada. They're the worst country to deal with, and they should be the 51st state. It's like, and now it's not even haha joking. It's like, okay, I just
Yeah,
we all
then
accept
give us
say whatever.
the Statue of Liberty back. So
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
It's it's quite the ride to live in the U.S.
But it's quite the right to live anywhere, because I think it's going to be export, and now everybody's going to say like, we're going to move into. Does anybody of you know the movie Idiocracy?
nope.
I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
So it's like where everybody turns really dumb, and then you have like when I think like the what is it, Futt Rockers, that brand in the movie I think it's called Butt Fuckers or something like that, because they already they degenerate, like they really, like, as a society went downhill. And the fun thing about it is, and that is kind of like they try to buy really cheap shoes for the audience, like the people that live there, because they're all kind of like in uniforms, and they wanted to make them really stupid and ridiculous because it's Idiocracy, right? And you know what kind of shoes they bought them to look really stupid and hillbilly-esque.
I don't know.
Crocs.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But and now everybody's wearing Crocs. So unironically, Me Too is wearing Crocs anywhere. So we are kind of like moving there, right? So it's like that movie, you have to watch it and you're like, oh my God, we're moving directly into that.
Speak for yourself.
World.
I don't wear Crocs, man.
I don't even.
Not gonna happen.
Not yet.
What do you mean, not yet?
Not yet. Well, when we when we idiots take over the world, we're gonna make you wear them.
Oh, then I'll be forced to. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be part of my my uniform then.
There you go. All right.
What other kind
what
of
else
mayhem is
on?
happening?
Well, you have to tell me, but like, because you mentioned it in just one sentence. You're going on tour.
Yes, actually I am. So I have a bunch of friends who are musicians, and two bands whom I'm kind of independently friends with each. They decided to go on a small little Europe tour together in May. And
did they know? Do they know each other?
Yes, yeah. They know each other.
Okay.
The vocalist of one band and the guitarist of the other, they had been together in yet another band. That's where they know each other from. So there's kind of mutual friendships connecting all of this. And so I have been, for fun, taking photos, primarily for my friend and her various bands over the past couple of years. And so when they decided that they wanted to go on a tour together, we initially jokingly talked about, if I have time and if I can tag along and just, take photos. And as it goes with small independent bands, everything is super tight. Everything, budgets are tight. Timing has to be tight. And you have to figure out ways to basically make every individual body who is part of a tour package kind of carry double or triple weight, because otherwise it's not economically feasible, right? So for me to tag along just to take pictures, that wouldn't have worked. So we talked a little bit about it, but I will now join them to help drive a little bit, the tour bus. I will, probably help carry a box or two and set up a little bit stage or break it down. I'll take some photos, and I'll be joining them on their tour from May 2nd until the 17th, through Europe. A couple of stations, mostly Germany, a little bit of Belgium, Poland.
Are you coming to Spain?
One in
Madrid?
Czech Republic. No, Spain is not. It's kind of a drivable little loop. Yeah.
Too unstable. Spain is too unstable now for bands to play there.
Yeah, too much flooding.
Where like, is there anything like, are you going to be playing close to where I live?
Yes-ish. So I think there's going to be one in Frankfurt. There's going to be one in Oberhausen.
Yeah,
there's going to be one
much closer. The Oberhausen one is much closer.
Yes. So there are, one or two or three. So I'll let you know.
They are headlining, or are they like supporting?
No, they're headlining. It's those two bands, kind of a double billing. One is called Serapis Project. That's a band actually from Barcelona, from Spain, and the other one is called Nogara. That's my friend Noelli's band.
And so and how, like, venue size. What kind of like venues are they playing? What's the size?
Small sizes, I think. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really involved in that kind of booking aspects of it. But I think what I heard were some venues were like 150, 200 size. Some of them might have been like 250, 300. But that's probably the largest.
Those places can be really fun. Those places can be really fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Those places can be really fun. I usually in my opinion. So over the last years, especially the last 2 years, I've been going to concerts a bit more. Then I had a huge gap of like nearly 10 years where I wasn't going to concert that much. Maybe 5 years. Then there was a time I was going like every Friday. I was going to concerts, and they were small venues. They were like hardcore bands playing like hardcore, metalcore, all that kind of stuff. And it was small venues like 200, 300 people. Simon, those places like Sputnik Halle in Münster, and those.
Oh, we're going to play in Münster too, by the way.
Oh,
okay, nice. Awesome.
And I catch myself saying we are going to play, because I'm not going to play.
Yes,
you don't want to hear me.
You're part of the band.
Thank you. But of course, yes, I appreciate it. But
well, and so that I like those, and I love those like when it's like over the top, huge kind of like stadium vibe, and it's just where it's kind of like epic. But then there's those concerts where you have like the 2,000 to 5,000 seat arena kind of things. They never really have an amazing vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year was it the year before? The year before, I saw Noel Gallagher and Queens of Stone Age in 1 week in the same venue, and the concerts were great, and we were kind of close up, and you were a bit drunk and all that. So then it kind of like is fun, but overall it was kind of like the venue wasn't that great. It was very generic, but then the band had to they had to do more to really create a vibe that is fun for everybody, than to have a smaller venue that is packed and everybody's just going, mental.
That's the thing, right? So these 2,000, 3,000 people venues, they're basically big boxes, right? They're you know, sometimes they're just like warehouses or something like that.
Well, that's what they mainly are, right? Usually.
Well, which means the acoustics usually suck. At least by that, which means you need to have skilled audio engineers to make that sound good across the range, and that's quite the challenge, you know. And the other aspect is that a lot of the vibe of a place kind of comes from closeness, from physical proximity. Right? Today I'm wearing a shirt from a local spot here in New York called Saint Vitus, which unfortunately was closed down recently. City inspectors. But Saint Vitus was an amazing spot. I mean, it was a tight, small venue. You had amazing bands playing. There's a video up on YouTube of Megadeth actually playing at Saint Vitus a couple of years back.
Nice.
And you know, but you had this proximity. People are standing right up on the stage, or they're literally on the stage, or falling onto the stage, or the guitarist is down off the stage because there's not enough space on the stage, or stuff like that. And those kinds of venues, they just give you an experience of being together in this. And that's just something that
electric.
Yeah, it is. And that's just something that the 2000, 3000 venue cannot pull off, because there is already usually a barrier, so that crowd surfers can be safely taken out by the security. That it means that people from the stage cannot just easily kind of reach down to the audience and to the fans. They have to make an effort to actually climb down off the stage and get close to the audience if they ever want to do that at some point. There's, and then there's the huge kind of either stadium size or open air festival setting, and that has its own different fantastic vibe to it. So
Simon, what was the last concert you went to?
So the last concert of a professional band was
it children's music?
No, it was a music genre which I normally not hear a lot anymore. It was glam rock, and I think the name of the band was like the whiskey, 4 Roses or All Roses or Red Roses. So it was a bit a cliche
Stone
name.
Roses?
Huh?
Stone Roses?
I don't think it was a German band. And
it was memorable.
Yeah, it was memorable. Yeah, it was really cool. It was in Osnabrück, in Rosenhof. It's a quite of legendary site in Osnabrück, and I think also in North Germany.
Don't they have these like huge kind of like pentagram or star on the wall?
Could be, or on the wall, on the.
It's like hanging or swinging, because I saw Boy Sets Fire play there once, and I thought it was like super heavy, so I just like pushed against it and it just started swinging. I'm like, oh,
well, was it the band logo of Boy Sets Fire?
No, because it was just. No, it was hanging somewhere there.
But so, and what I really remember is the sound there, right? They had a really good sound there. I would say the best sound I've ever heard. So it was really, really great.
Nice,
a really, really nice sound, and the band was good. So it was a German band. German band singing English is oftentimes a bit, and it was like that, but in the end it was a nice vibe, nice friendly band, nice vibe. It was cool, and I went there with a friend, and actually the friend bought the ticket, and then normally he wanted to go with another friend, but then the other friend,
the usual stuff.
Yeah, the usual stuff. And what
was your last show, Max? Oh, sorry, Simon, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it was. Yeah, normally I'm in kind of small locations, but I went just once to a concert in a stadium. It was a Olympic Stadium in Berlin, and it was I think I was 16 or 17. I think that was my only stadium concert experience, and it was.
U2.
It
was U2.
Yeah. So afterwards, I went to festivals, right? It's also kind of stadium atmosphere, but really in a stadium, it was just once U2 in Berlin, 2002 or something like that.
What do you have a favorite concert, favorite memory of the best concert you've ever been to?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a festival, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. Which one?
I think, although I'm not a fan of the band, the show was quite cool. It was Rammstein.
At
So
Hurricane?
it was Hurricane. It was pretty cool.
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. And then besides that, yeah.
That was it. By the way, that was a crazy. We can talk about that in a little bit because that was a crazy festival. So Hurricane Festival in Germany was kind of like the contender festival to Rock am Ring, right? So the huge festival, and they were the contender festival, and it was the only time we were there. And I think we talked about it. It was 2004 or 2005. Must have been then. And it was huge. It had bigger names than Rock am Ring. It had Oasis playing. It had System of a Down. It had Audio Slave. It had 9 Inch Nails. Just like all the Hives, Boy Sets Fire. There were like everybody, like all huge bands were there. It was crazy. It was super crazy. Like that was really like insane. The lineup was insane then. Last concert I've been to was Chuck Reagan in Münster at Skaters Palace. Chuck Reagan, lead singer of Hot Water Music, and he does his own kind of like stuff where he does like country Americana.
Is he a thing in the US, by the way? So oftentimes I think no. Right?
Might be. The name doesn't ring a bell for me.
And Hot Water Music as well doesn't really like. I think there were more like they have a small following in the US. I would say. I think it's the same with like probably Boy Sets Fire as well. And a few of those bands those like post-hardcore.
They have a very loyal fan base in Europe, right? But they are nearly
I think
unknown.
Those bands kind of like work very well in Europe. Yeah. So that was the last concert, and I agree. Like in the last concert that I've seen, audio quality has been super great. Oh, by the way, last concert, I don't know if it counts. On Saturday night, I was in Leipzig and we went to an Irish pub. Apparently, like there's a bunch of Irish pubs in Leipzig, and it was kind of like the celebration before St. Paddy's Day. So there was an Irish folk band playing. They were German, and it was fun. You came in, they were all like, and they had this like gothic vibe. Everybody like in the audience as well. It kind of felt like, are we part of this? Like because like there's this thing about Eastern Germany being a bit like too far right, and then it was like this Irish setting, and then a lot of people like in tattoos and gothic vibe, and we're like, oh, are you kind of like at this like clan festival here? But it wasn't. It was kind of like a strange intersection of Irish folk and goth. But the music was amazing. Like they played all those Irish songs, and they had an Irish accent when they were singing, and then when they spoke, they had this like Eastern German accent. That was funny, and the sound quality is this tiny room, and you could still hear yourself, but it was super. Like even in that Irish pub in a back room, it was still amazing sound quality, and that is something that has improved over the last years. I haven't seen a show in the last 5 years with bad audio quality, no matter what venue. So I wonder if it's like AI improvements or new tools that they use, or because I've been to shows like where you like standing right next to the sound guy and you're like, aren't you hearing what I'm hearing? Because it really sounds like shit. Like I just hear bass drum and the rest is just, static noise.
That's actually interesting. I went to a festival last year, and on the way there, I happened to be sitting next to on the plane an audio engineer who was there for 2 or 3 bands, and we talked a little bit. And right the day when I arrived, we went to the festival listened to a couple of bands already, and it didn't sound great. So this is like a festival set up of 2 main stages that are being played, left to right. And that set of stages was not tuned well. The speakers weren't tuned correctly. And I actually texted the guy because I knew that he was scheduled to play with basically. So I knew that he was scheduled with his band or with one of his bands to be the first on the next day. And I said, look, man, I don't know what they're doing here, and I really can't tell you exactly what's wrong with it, but it doesn't sound great. So, if you want your band to sound better than this, maybe come half an hour early or something and check this out. And then later, when we arrived to the festival grounds, I saw him and I talked to him again, and he said, "Hey, thanks. I actually did arrive early. I did spend some time on figuring this out, and it turned out they were using a bad mixing console, a cheap one, that had ultimately an impact on the overall sound." And then they had some other options, and he was able to, I don't know, tweak it a little bit with his experience and his level of expertise. And the rest of that day sounded pretty good. And then the next day,
done,
again, it sounded like shit again.
Well done, Andreas. That was user feedback. And I think I feel for the guys too, like the people working in audio engineering. I think like we realize that with, audio quality, recording quality, we did, testing before. And I think like live streaming and the signals and all of that, there's so many like variables in it with like different microphones, different streaming qualities. Like, then you have, you have to go through a PA system. It has to like pick up everything. It is really complex. Like that's what you kind of forget. You like in the end, you want to hear a band that sounds great. But then if like, or, you just want to record a podcast, and I think it's so like, there's so much that goes into it to make it work that you don't see. And, I think when we start with the studio, with Hypecast Studio, and what we're like recording this with, I think, you think like, oh, this is easy. And then you realize, wow, this is really like, there's so many things, so many tiny variables that can just go wrong that you might not even be able to replicate. And so I feel for those guys, and whenever you have great sound, I appreciate it much more.
So Simon, this is a big thank you to you, because as CTO, you're responsible for the good sound that we have here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
You and your team.
Andreas, last show you've been to? Last show
I've been to was actually Aetheriam and Solemn Vision here in New York. I think I had mentioned that a couple of episodes back already, so it's been a few weeks already. I haven't been to any others since.
And best show? Do you remember best show you've ever been to?
I was thinking about that when you mentioned it earlier. I can't say that there's a best show, but one that I really like remembering was seeing Metallica in Zurich because of the context. So on their recent tour, or on one of their recent tours, not the most recent one, I happened to be in Zurich on a business trip, and between 2 customer or client visits that I was on there with a colleague, we actually walked past the stadium, and I saw the 2 little, the pointy bits of the M logo, or of the logo of the stage kind of poke up from that stadium. The Zurich stadium is a little bit recessed into the ground.
Yeah.
And so then, just by chance, because that entire Europe tour was sold out very quickly across Europe. And so just by chance, I was like, well, maybe there is a ticket available. And there was, and it was reasonably priced. And then as we walked, I also saw that there was, I don't know, some Marriott or some hotel in the vicinity of that was part of the chain where I tend to have a bunch of points. So I checked if they had a room left, and they did, and I could book it with points. And so I got myself a ticket, I got myself a hotel room, and then I just kind of pushed my my flight to the next morning, and ended up seeing unexpectedly Metallica, and it wasn't even super packed. So the kind of inside ticket that I got allowed me to relatively easily kind of move my way up front in the center. It was great. It was really fun, and so that was a nice experience.
One band, like, I think they kind of like went and got this new status with kind of like what it kind of feels like watching a Champions League game or the Super Bowl. It kind of feels like removed from the actual sport. So Metallica seems to be like removed from the actual like music industry as being something like you go into a museum or something like that, or a monster truck show where it's like it's the whole show. It's a great band. They're still a fucking great band. They're a great band. They have great songs. So I agree with that. But they kind of like remove themselves from themselves to a certain extent, where it's kind of like turned into this whatever
they do literally play on a different level. Yes.
Yeah.
With their status, with the size of it. But there's always at every time in history, there's always some bands that kind of are on that level, usually for a while, right?
You know what?
U2 for a while. If you were talking about that earlier, some of those shows and some of those tours were definitely different than everything else. Rammstein.
I leave you with the
Taylor
like
Swift.
because we're
totally different level.
It kind of turned like the weekend I saw them him play. That was crazy, like a crazy stadium thing. Like last year you had the Eras tour, you had the Beyonce tour, like you had Adele in Munich, which a lot of people said like that was sad because it was just something where it wasn't heartfelt, it wasn't close, where it felt like she wasn't really feeling it because it hadn't this like emotional connection. It was more like you do this and then you have to like your family and your kids have to never worry about money ever again while playing those 10 shows or 15 shows because it made 600 million. So that kind of thing. So it's kind of like I did that for my economic benefit and my economic prosperity for the next generations. But a lot of people said like that was sad to watch because it wasn't like what they expected. It wasn't this emotional thing.
Shows.
Yeah, the Adele shows. Yeah. But and the interesting thing is, so I leave you with that because we have to close up this episode, and I wonder if you agree with that or if there's any similarity to business. So you look at bands, and you mentioned this. You look at bands like AC/DC, Metallica, ZZ Top, those like big name brands, and there's probably other bands as well. The U2 as well. It happens a lot in the rock kind of genre, where you have like they start off, they work their ass off, they kind of build like a cult following, they kind of get big to a certain level. But then if you look at like when you think Metallica was big, like early 90s, mid 90s, they were still relatively small compared to what you see now. So that was kind of like peak when they played like Moscow and that kind of stuff. And then it was this phase, and it was the same with AC/DC, and ZZ Top. Like and then they have a long dry run where it's like they're not as important anymore. Albums are not as great when you look at like Spotify download numbers and stuff like that. And then they kind of like, yeah.
I'll tell you what you want to match that up with. You want to match that up with the age of the average fan and the kind of family pattern of people at that age. So these bands are big in the early beginning when the fans are young. Then the fans get focused on family and taking care of kids and that kind of thing. And then when the kids,
maybe the bands themselves as well.
Or maybe too, absolutely. But then economically, also the fans are like, well, am I going to get food for my kids or going to get a ticket? Well, you're going to get food for the kids, right? And then ideally, and then
terrible fans, terrible fans.
And then at some point, that is not the primary problem anymore, and the fans have cash to spend again, and they're like, oh my god, I haven't seen these guys in forever, let's do this again. And that's when it picks up again.
And then it kind of like goes really big, and then younger audiences listen as well, so you kind of have this like initial uptake, then you have kind of like a longer kind of like phase where it just goes and goes and goes, and then like later in their careers they kind of have this like giant pickup again.
And this is
So
where
I
Mayhem
wonder if
turns into
there's-
Masterplans, and exactly, and we can
and
turn
I wonder,
this.
yeah, that's what I wonder, if there's any similarity to like the hype cycle, the Gartner hype cycle, or anything related to a corporate life that you can look at, where you have like the initial kind of like great phase, then you have a bit of like a drought where you kind of need to figure out where you want to go and kind of like push through it, because eventually that turns into like long-term and legendary status and success. That's what I wonder, if there's any similarity to that. But
I think we could probably
fruit for
explore
thought.
that in another episode at some point. But
Exactly. Last
all right,
song you listen
last
to.
songs.
Tell me.
Pearl Jam, Jeremy.
Oh, then that's a good one. My streak goes on. If you're happy. Last time it was if you are happy and you know it. This time it's just if you are happy.
Awesome. My last song was what did I listen to? I'd listened to a Dr. Dre. No, I'd listened to an Dr. Dre song. And I think it was Still Dre.
Fantastic. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.